Today we have a very special guest, and we're going to be talking about Astral Inspirations by Kory. And so without further ado, we're just going to do a little introduction here. Kory Varlen is doing Astral Inspiration. She's been studying astrology since the age of 11 years old. She has a bachelor education from UBC, where I graduated, an RSW from McEwen University. I don't know what RSW is. We'll find out from her. She lived in Vancouver 22 years. 1971, moved to Toronto. I was born in Toronto. Oh my God. And she lived in South America for 10 years and taught and learned with shamans there. Has done radio and television work all throughout North and South America. And she was Ralph Mayer's favorite astrologer when she was on the show on CKNW. Anyway, without further ado, let's bring her on. Good morning.
Good morning, Tyson. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent. Lovely to hear that. Well, thank you for the invitation. As you know, we're all entangled by the laws of physics, and there's no coincidence, we know. So I'm very grateful to you that I have this opportunity to share my knowledge. And I'm basically a research astrologer, although I do a lot of consulting. And I just really feel like it's time we all have to step up our game. And the eclipse that's just happened is doing that for us. It's creating a kind of a higher vibration. We're kind of being upregulated by this eclipse that happened on June the 4th. So I'm very excited to talk about that. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering, so we've all been eclipsed, by our higher selves. So what does that all mean?
Well, one of the fields of research that I specialize in are the lunar eclipses. A lot of astrologers pay attention to the solar eclipses because that's the big show, right? Everybody knows about solar eclipses, but what a lot of people don't know about are the effects of the lunar eclipses. And I'm currently finishing off a 450-page manuscript that I'm going to publish on the effects of lunar eclipses because they're really, really powerful. The last one happened, the lunar eclipses are basically a fancy way of talking about a full moon. And the last one was on June the 5th. So we are in what's called an eclipse season, and every eclipse belongs to a family. And like families, they all have very kind of unique, shall we say, characteristics. And this particular family of eclipses belongs to what's called the Saros 111 cycle. It's a cycle that's been in effect for over 1,000 years. And these eclipses have a lifespan of anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 years. And what they bring on is an evolutionary shift. And if you've wondered what's been going on with the murder of George Floyd and what's happening in our society right now, everything has just, I don't know if we can swear online here, but literally things have really turned to shite in the last 3 weeks because of this eclipse. Eclipses can be felt anywhere from 2 weeks to 10 days before they hit. And the last eclipse was on June the 5th. And
let me see if I got this straight. So are you saying then that what the lunar eclipse is a full moon, and the effect of the full moon is really what you're focused on, and how a powerful effect that has on us as humans? And then each moon cycle is like, what, 1,500 years?
Well, yes, each eclipse has a lifespan of over 1,000 years because that's just the way they roll. They roll out from the North and the South Pole, and they cross the globe, and it takes them, like the lifespan of an eclipse cycle, the Babylonians knew all about this, is over 1,000 years.
Wow.
And I've been studying this with my teacher, Bernadette Brady, since the early 2000s, and they have an impact. And I just want to share with everybody what this eclipse can do for all of us, because it carries this energy. Imagine visiting a particular family on your neighborhood street, and this family is known for just kind of instigating and catalyzing the whole community. Like every community's got one of these families.
Mm-hmm.
And this eclipse family is like that. It just really gets people networking and socializing and connecting, and it brings out your gifts. So whatever gift you've got, Bring it on, guys. And there are particular time periods, Tyson, of the year when people are really like people. I'm sure your audience would love to hear this because there's two groups of people that are really being affected by this eclipse. Would you like to know when they're born?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, so all of our listeners and all of your friends who are born between June the 3rd to June the 7th of any year are getting the impact of this eclipse. And then at the opposite time of the year, which is in December, people born from December 5th to 9th are also getting the full impact of this eclipse. So if you're wondering why your life may be an absolute freak out chaos right now, you're getting the full impact of this eclipse.
Wow.
And that's just not the eclipse. There's a lot of other stuff going on this week. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better time to get me on your show, Tyson, because a lot of people know about the Mercury retrograde cycles. Even healers know about this. And when the planet Mercury moves backwards in the sky, it doesn't really, but from our point of view, it looks like it's moving backwards. Everything starts to go into free fall. And that's happening this week. That's happening starting Wednesday. And I've also picked out 4 different groups of people that are going to be affected by this retrograde. So would you like to know those?
Absolutely, go take it away.
All right. So all of you people born in 1952 and 1953, so this is the older crowd. Everybody who's basically 67 or 68 years of age are all going to be affected by this Mercury retrograde. And people born at the opposite end, people born in 1990. So everybody turning 30 right now is going to get the effect of this particular Mercury going retrograde. It's just because Mercury's in a place in the sky that will kind of play you like a harp. And you're going to be resonating to this energy of what we call reworking and revising and reimagining your possibilities. It's seriously powerful stuff.
It sort of turns everything upside down, doesn't it?
Well, it forces people to rethink, like, what do you believe? You know, what stories have you been telling yourself all your life? Like, they're probably not true. So it's a great time to look at your, shall we say, idealism about almost anything. And there's 2 more groups, Tyson. There's a group born in 1966. So those folks would be what? About 54? 54 years of age. And then there's another group born in 1978. And those folks would be about 42. So anybody born who's hitting the age of 30, 42, 54, or 67 or 68, all of you guys are going to have quite an interesting month ahead. This Mercury retrograde is in effect basically until the end of July. So even though the planet will start moving direct as we see it by July the 11th, yeah, there's going to be some serious conversations going on between now and the end of July about people's value systems and just basically what they think about almost everything. So what I always tell my clients during these time periods is don't make any major decisions. Do not sign any documents because you're going to probably change your mind. It's not a good time to be looking for houses, apartments, new relationships. It's time to just settle in and reconfigure your system. You kind of get a reboot, Tyson. That's what's happening. People are going to get a reboot, and it's coming in on Wednesday.
Well, that sounds pretty dramatic for some people. Luckily, I'm not in that group. And I've always been sort of fascinated by people that say, oh, Mercury retrograde. I try to avoid that. But what you're really saying is that for different times, it affects different groups of people. I didn't understand that. I thought we were all under Mercury retrograde. But you're saying, no, there's different groups of people at different times.
Because it's like you and I right now, and Laura, we're doing a broadcast, right?
Yeah.
No, we have a frequency we're sending out. Not everybody's going to pick up our broadcast, unfortunately.
That is unfortunate because, wow, they've
Yes,
learned so much.
yes. And so your chart is like that. Your chart is basically an energy pattern.
Yeah,
And some people will get their pattern moved. Like think of yourself like you're a radio station, and I can pick up certain stations, and other
right,
stations I can. And so when anything in the sky is moving, it resonates based on your energy frequency, your vibration. So as a healer, um, people who are, if they're empathic or intuitive, like most of us are, and these eclipses and these Mercury retrogrades and any transit of any planet will affect you only if your personal energy pattern can pick up these, shall we say, what's in the air.
right. So even if we're all empathic, it really has to do when we were born about what certain frequencies we will be adjusting to as we move through these periods. Is that correct?
Exactly, exactly. And
Right.
what I love to do is I love to look at the energy patterns between people, and I
Yeah.
use the chart. Instead of cutting open a rooster to read the entrails, I
Yeah,
just look
let's
at the
not do that on
sky.
the show.
I look at the sky and I look at people's charts and I can see, well, this is your energy pattern, and no wonder you resonate to your partner or your business or your friends. So to me, it's been fascinating. As I told you, I've been doing this since I was 11.
Right. So what sort of other things can we expect, with this aspirants inspirations for this week? What sort of things, other things?
Thank you.
We got lunar eclipses, and we've got Mercury retrograde, and it sounds like pretty turbulent time for all of us with what's happening in Black Lives
Yes,
Matter
yes.
all around.
And to top it off, because we're in an eclipse season, we've just had the lunar eclipse on June the 5th. We're having a solar eclipse on the very first day of summer here in North America. So on June 21st, when we shift into the summer season, right, the longest day of the year, we're getting a solar eclipse.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. And so again, people born around the time of this eclipse,
Yeah.
so anybody born on June 20th, 21st, 22nd, your whole life is going to get lit up in the
Like a
next.
Christmas tree. Wow, that's amazing. So
It
yeah,
is truly. So again, this is an amazing time. There's so much going on. But I would say if I had to make a final comment or a generalized statement, we are in a time of incredible idealism. And some people are going off the freaking rails with this, right?
yeah,
I mean, we're just seeing a lot of, for some people, very idealistic conformity, people afraid to, say what they truly mean. And then we've got the other half of the crowd that's just going berserk out there. So we're in this really heightened state of, I call it like internal revolution. And one last thing I'd like to say is that we're in the final quarter phase of the moon. And everybody should pay attention to these lunar cycles, because we go from the new moon to the first quarter to the full moon and then to the last quarter of the moon. And the last quarter phase of the moon is really, really interesting. And that's where we are today. Between today and Sunday, when we have the new moon, which is the special, well, the solar eclipse is a new moon, but it's a special type of new moon. So we're in this reorientation phase, Tyson. So basically all of us need to be going within and connecting to I'd say our internal spiritual warriors and healers to do some really deep work. And so it's a great time to see a therapist, to see a healer, an empath, an intuitive, an astrologer, whatever, because in the next 7 days, what we've got is a sense of rebalancing, reorienting, and
well,
just a great time.
thank you ever so much, Kory, for showing up in the show. And I know in the show notes there's all the different ways that our listeners can reach you. And we do have, in the last show of the week here, we're going to be talking about the solstice, and you've given us some precursors about what we can expect on that and how powerful that's going to be. So I think I'd like to invite you back on Friday to talk about this amazing time that we're going to be having energetically as we go into the summer. So I'd like
Can
to
I,
invite you back
can I
in.
just mention one quick thing,
Yeah,
Tyson?
yeah.
The business cycles are all on an uptick on Thursday. So if anybody's investing in the stock market, do it on Thursday. There's going to be a noticeable uptick in the business cycles of the world on Thursday because of what's happening. So just a little, I do some financial astrology for clients, and the markets are going up on Thursday.
All right. Thanks for showing up on the show. Much appreciated.
You're
Bye for
welcome.
now.
Love to
That
see
was
you
so
again.
fun. Thank you, Kory. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Lovely to meet you, Laura.
Lovely to meet you too, Kory. We'll see you on Friday.
Hope
Bye.
so.
Yeah.